They told me he didn't scream when the explosion ripped through the field. That was the first lie. Because I was there, I heard it. His voice, once a commanding roar that made men march into fire without hesitation, broke in a guttural cry as shrapnel tore across his side. And in that moment, the Alpha General who had never faltered, who had been the immovable wall against death itself, collapsed into the dirt, and the world went silent. I never forgot the silence. Months later, back in the United States, he wasn't the same man. General Elias Kane, my Alpha, the one whose hand used to anchor me during every mission, every storm, had turned into a ghost. His words came out clipped, his eyes glacial. His touch once fire and shelter was gone. He wouldn't look at me for longer than a few seconds, and when he did, it was as if I were nothing more than a soldier under his command. And God, it hurt, because I wasn't just another soldier. I was the Omega who had loved him long before the war. Elias had been my compass, my impossible dream turned reality. The Alpha everyone respected, but I alone had gotten close enough to hold when the weight of leadership broke him. The one who pressed his forehead to mine, intense, lit by lantern light, whispering promises of, after this war, I'll take you home. But the war had stolen more than his flesh and blood. It had stolen me from him, too. The first time I tried to touch him after his discharge, he flinched. Not pulled away, not stiffened, flinched, as if my hand carried the same fire that had burned him on that field. Don't, he muttered, voice lower, rougher than I'd ever heard. His once perfect posture was crooked now, pain stitched into his bones. I don't need your pity, Caleb. Pity. The word cut deeper than the shrapnel ever had. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't here out of pity, that my body still burned every time I smelled the sharp cedar and smoke scent of his alpha pheromones, that I still woke up in the middle of the night clawing for him, aching. But he'd already turned his back on me. We lived in the same house, technically, his family estate in Virginia, where the walls whispered of honor and sacrifice. I cooked. He barely ate. I tried to talk. He drowned himself in silent whiskey. I wanted to fight for him, but how do you fight for someone who refuses to let you hold a weapon? I didn't just want him back, I needed him. So I made myself a promise. If Elias Kane thought he could push me away, he'd underestimated me. I hadn't survived bullets and blood at his side just to lose him to his own ghosts. I was going to break through, even if it shattered me in the process. The nights were the hardest. That's when the nightmares took him. He'd wake drenched in sweat, eyes wide, gasping as if the air were laced with gunpowder again. I'd sit outside his door, listening to his muffled curses, to the sound of his fists hitting the headboard as if he were trying to fight the war all over again. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed into his room, ignoring his barked command to leave. His scars glistened under the dim light, his chest heaving, and his scent, usually tempered and controlled, was raw, wild, trembling with alpha panic. Without thinking, I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. It wasn't your fault, I whispered, even as he thrashed, trying to push me away. You're still you, Elias. You're still mine. His eyes, dark and broken, flickered for just a moment like a soldier recognizing home after years away. But then the wall came back, slamming down so hard it almost made me dizzy. You don't want this version of me, he rasped, his voice cracking on the edges. You want the man I used to be, and he's gone, Caleb. I refused to let go. My thumbs brushed the angry scar along his jaw, the one that twisted when he clenched his teeth. Then I'll love this version, even if it kills me. For a second, the air between us burned with something almost forgotten, longing, grief, the shadow of the nights we used to have. Then he shoved me away, harder than I expected, and I stumbled back into the cold. The slam of his door echoed like a gunshot. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He sat at the table with his coffee, jaw tight, his uniform shirt ironed even though he had no command left to report to. His eyes didn't meet mine, but I caught the faintest tremor in his hand as he gripped the mug. I should have been angry, furious even, but all I felt was the familiar ache of someone who loved too much. So I sat across from him, deliberately close enough for my omega pheromones to brush against his alpha shield. His eyes flicked up for half a second, sharp with warning, but I didn't move. "You can't keep pretending you don't need me," I said quietly, the morning light catching the stubborn lines of his face. "Because I'm not going anywhere, Elias. Not this time." He didn't answer. He just stared into his coffee like it held the war inside it. But I saw it had crack. The tiniest fracture in the ice he'd built around himself. And I swore right then that I would make it grow. A week later, the town held a memorial for fallen soldiers. Elias hated these things. He said they were nothing but reminders of blood that could never be washed away. But when I told him I was going, he didn't stop me. He only gave me that cold, unreadable look and muttered, "Do what you want." So I went. And maybe, just maybe, I went hoping he'd follow. Standing there among the rows of flags and folded letters, I read out names I could barely choke through. Friends who never made it home. Men who'd laughed with me in the mud, only to fall with wide eyes and parted lips. My voice cracked, but I kept going. Because Elias couldn't. When I stepped down from the podium, I felt it before I saw him, the heavy, undeniable pull of his alpha sent cutting through the crowd. And there he was, leaning against the back wall, arms crossed, jaw set. Our eyes met, and for the first time since the accident, he didn't look away. He didn't move toward me at the memorial, but his eyes never left mine. It was a small victory, but for me it was everything. For the first time, Elias didn't shield himself behind walls of silence. For the first time, he stayed. When the crowd began to disperse, I waited. My breath fogged in the chilly Virginia air as candles flickered out one by one. He walked slowly toward me, his steps heavy, as if each one threatened to break him. "You shouldn't have done that," he murmured, his voice like gravel. Standing up there, reading their names. Too much. I swallowed hard. It was the right thing. They deserved to be remembered. His jaw tightened. And what about the ones I couldn't save? The ache in his words was unbearable. I wanted to hold him, to kiss every scar until he believed he was more than his failures. Instead, I whispered, "You saved me. Isn't that worth something?" For a moment, his eyes softened. Then, like always, the steel slammed back down. He brushed past me, his shoulder grazing mine, but he didn't tell me to leave. That was enough. Weeks bled into each other. Slowly, painfully, Elias began to let me stay closer. He didn't flinch when I brushed his arm in the kitchen. He let me sit in the living room with him at night, both of us in silence, the TV flickering. He even accepted the meals I made without pushing the plate away. Little cracks in the armor. But one night, the dam broke. I found him in the garage, sitting on the floor, clutching an old box of medals and dog tags. His body shook, his breathing ragged. "Elias," I whispered, stepping closer. He didn't look up. "They gave me these for surviving, but I didn't survive. Not the part that mattered." I knelt beside him, my hand trembling as I touched his shoulder. "You survived enough to come back. Enough to still be here. With me." His head snapped toward me, eyes blazing with something between fury and grief. "Why do you keep saying that? Why can't you see I'm broken? Caleb, I can't love you the way I used to. I can't even look at myself without seeing everything I lost." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Then let me love you enough for both of us. Until you remember how." He stared at me, chest heaving, alpha pheromones colliding with mine in a storm that made the air thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. For the first time, he didn't push me away. Instead, he broke. His forehead crashed against mine, rough and desperate, and his hands gripped my arms like I was the only anchor left in the world. His breath was hot against my lips as he whispered, "I don't deserve you." "You do," I swore, pressing closer. "You always have." And when his lips finally crushed against mine, it wasn't gentle. It was years of pain, months of silence, and the wild, raw truth that we were still alive. After that night, things didn't magically heal. The scars didn't fade, and the nightmares still came. But Elias stopped shutting me out. He let me crawl into his bed when he woke in terror, clinging to me like a drowning man. He let me cook for him, sit with him, walk with him through the quiet streets of town. He let me stay. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the fields gold, he spoke words I thought I'd never hear again. "I wanted to marry you," he said suddenly, staring out the window. "Before the war, I had a ring. It was in my pack the day of the explosion. Lost it in the fire." My heart stopped. "Elias." He turned then, his scarred face softer than I'd seen it in months. "I still want to, if you'll have me, even if I'm not the man you remember." I crossed the room, tears spilling freely now, and took his hand. "You're not the man I remember. You're stronger. You're here. And I love you." His voice cracked. "Say it again. I love you." This time, when he kissed me, it was slow, reverent, like he was memorizing every piece of me. The wedding wasn't grand. Just a small gathering in the backyard of the Kane estate, with fairy lights strung across the trees and the faint scent of roses in the evening air. His scars were visible, his limp noticeable, but when he looked at me, none of it mattered. I wore a simple suit, my hands trembling as I held his. He squeezed once, grounding me the way he used to on the battlefield. The vows were raw, unpolished, but ours. "I thought I lost everything," Elias said, his voice rough with emotion. "But you stayed. Through the silence, through the pain. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that." My chest ached as I whispered back, "You don't have to be worthy. You just have to be mine. And you always will be." When the officiant declared us bound, his lips met mine with the certainty of a man who had finally come home. Life after the vows wasn't perfect. There were still nights when he woke shaking, when I held him until dawn. There were days when he limped more heavily, when the memories clawed back. But there was laughter again, shared meals, long drives with the windows down, quiet mornings where I woke to his arms around me, his scent warm and safe. Healing wasn't a straight path, but it was ours. And every time Elias pressed his lips to my temple, whispering, "You saved me," I knew the truth. We had saved each other. Years later, on a summer evening, I found him on the porch, watching the horizon. His hair had grown lighter at the edges, his body still marked by the war, but his eyes, God, his eyes were alive again. He pulled me close, settling me against his chest. The cicadas sang in the distance, the air heavy with the scent of cut grass and home. "You were right," he murmured into my hair. "About what? That love could bring me back." He kissed the crown of my head, his alpha presence surrounding me, grounding me. "I never thought I'd have this again, but I do, because of you." I smiled, closing my eyes as the world finally felt still. We both came back, Elias, together, and for the first time since the battlefield, peace truly found us. The war had tried to steal everything, but our love refused to surrender. We had bled for it, broken for it, fought for it, and in the end, love won. Always. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.